motto that this company and the CEO had put in place for his company, for all of his staff, everybody that worked for the company in regards to addressing safety. So I know every day on job sites, especially on the field side, you're focused, task at hand, people are bothering you, coming up asking questions, and sometimes you may see something that you know isn't right, but you got to stop it and you got to fix it. So the motto that the gentleman had was, if you see a safety violation, or if you see something that's not correct, see it, identify it. The say it part was to discuss the issue with the people who are violating safety or putting themselves or somebody else in harm, and then correct the issue to where the people are working safely, or if they need to be removed, whatever the case would be. So just the see it, say it, fix it motto for anybody who's working on a job site, field staff, office staff, to keep that in mind. Don't walk past something if you see it, if it's not correct. So that was one thing. Another item I was going to mention, talked about it at our superintendent's meeting last time, with the holiday, with Mardi Gras, drinking and driving. I would strongly recommend people be wise, not drink and drive during Mardi Gras. I've known several people who have unfortunately been killed from drinking and driving, or been injured from drinking and driving, so that's a second safety moment I wanted to bring up. Be smart, get a cab, or get a designated driver.
Thank you very much. I'm going to big hand. I think I was supposed to go through something else first. We'll just remind me. So code of conduct, you guys are familiar with it. I think one of the main things is, not only turn your phones off, but in particular when our guest speaker is here, really try to avoid looking at your phones. And there's nothing so urgent that you can't, tune yourself out for an hour or so, unless, of course, you have some kind of emergency. But let's please give our speakers their undivided attention. Okay, next up is Greg Landy.
Good afternoon. Thanks, Tony. That was a great safety moment, and I've got another little one to share with you. As I was coming back from the beautiful Plaquemines Parish last night, I was driving north, and something caught my eye. I looked to my right, and there was a big sign that said, "No one gets hurt." And then I noticed there was something after that, and it said, I looked back, and it said, "Ever." I said, damn, man, that's sweet. I said, we got our motto is send everybody home at the end of the day. And no one gets hurt, ever. So I looked up that company, and I said, is this a small company with 10 people? Or is it a company our size, or a company 10 times our size? Well, there's a company with 64,000 employees. A company that does $258 billion a year. The company Shell. And I thought that was cool, kind of as I was driving home last night. And I know, it's a challenge, with some of the subs that we deal with on a day-to-day basis, sending everybody home at the end of each day. And I just wanted to tell everybody, I know the struggles that you're facing out there, and I appreciate everything that y'all are doing to get that done. So thank you. Okay, a couple of things on training. CPR. Mac Taylor is going to do our CPR training. Mac is on board, and we're trying to set up for NOLA. We're trying to set up, I guess, the 2 Fridays after Mardi Gras for 4 Fridays after that. Part 1 and Part 2 of the training. will take place in Dole on Friday mornings from 8 to 12. I think we got 16 or so people that need CPR training there. And we're going to try to get everybody through that part 1 and part 2. First 2 Fridays, part 1, part 2, and then next 2 Fridays, part 1 and part 2. And then in Baton Rouge and Lafayette, we're going to try to do the CPR training on the Thursday afternoons before the Friday morning. So until we get everybody, we'll have, we try to get 4, 5, 6 people in each session, so everybody gets trained up in a couple months. The other thing on OSHA 10 and 30 is click safety. Leon brought this to us after he attended the seminar. We've looked at some samples of the stuff on the website, and it looks like some good stuff. So we're going to try to get that. I think by the end of March we should be able to get that up and running, and then everybody will have a opportunity to get the OSHA 10 and 30, and then in the future there's 300 or 400 different safety classes, not all applicable to the company, but we'll have the opportunity to get those as well. So, for those of you who were not here last time or the time before, I'll just quickly run through the reason why we have the David Rocha Award. About 10 years ago, David was on a man lift outside of a building that was in punch list stage down in South Louisiana, and he was outside an overhead door that was not locked out, and this happened to be a bi-party door and not a roll-up door, and he was parallel to the door. Somebody came inside and opened up the door, and the force of the door opening turned the lift over, and David died that day. So we, as a company said, we need to have a greater focus on safety. And, since that day, I think we have, and we've done a good job, but we still have a long way to go. So the David Rocha Award, we came up with LIFE, which is the Lemoine injury-free environment. And with that was some greater emphasis on fall protection and PPE and whatnot. So this program, we've given this award out for the past 10 years, and this goes to the person who most demonstrates the goals of the LIFE program. And I had to get a little help for this year's winner because I wasn't familiar with the job. But this year's winner observed, reported, and prevented hazards and has outstanding safety record. He not only exhibited the above, but he took it a step further. He took our safety foundation, carried it 500 miles away, in the middle of nowhere, delivered it effectively and to total strangers. Some of his challenges were he was working on a job that was 24/7, 365 operation of oil field around his site. The traffic actually went down beside his job site nonstop. They tried to pour some asphalt, and they said, no, you can't shut down that road because that's $2.3 million a day. He instituted a two-honk alarm for all the oil field vehicles that were coming on site. They had to honk twice so everybody else would be aware. I mean, no, he had no idea, you know, what he was getting himself into. He had the subs didn't know him. We didn't know the subs. But he did an outstanding job getting the job set up and making sure that those guys, you know, understood our foundation, our number one foundation of safety. So this year's winner of the David Robichaud Award, and I got to tell you all, he told me this morning that the reason he grows his hair long is to help the Locks for Love Foundation.
He did trim the beard the other day.
So that I don't know much about it, but I believe it's a cancer organization. So that's great that he does that. This year's winner, Josh Bashir.
So now we move to the guest speaker portion of the program. I think most of you probably saw with the appointment information on the email that you got, a bio on a man that really needs no introduction. A lot of the people in this room have either worked with Mike on a project or were the beneficiaries of one of the seminars he did for us several years ago on productivity. And, you know, it was just a tremendous eye-opening experience for most of us. Mike, in fact, I told a group from our New Orleans office today who has not seen that you would graciously, I volunteered you to come back and do that to them. And so, anyway, please join me in giving a big Lemoine welcome to Mike Horton.
Thank you, Lenny and Teresa, for having me here today. First off, I want to introduce, and a lot of you know Mike Stoner. He runs our Mandeville office, and Charles Knight is a project manager that works with Mike. Several years ago, I came in to do the productivity seminar, and since then, I've probably given it 60 times to different places. A lot of different companies have heard of FMI and the Lean Construction Institute and other. How many of you guys here were there and heard the productivity seminar? Just to give you an idea. Okay, about half. And then we came back and did a former failures class here also with you guys. But part of the process of developing the productivity culture, during that process, we realized that a lot of the ideas that we came up with was through creativity. And I think I told a lot of you guys at the productivity seminar how I started writing a weekly productivity letter and have now for 7 years. And it caused me to go out and take classes on productivity. Also took classes on creativity and innovation at Georgia Tech. I took it at Disney. And I've read a lot of articles and started amassing a lot of information. Well, several years ago, I was the chairman of the board of Associated Builders and Contractors for Georgia. And they didn't have a student chapter at Southern Polytech, so I helped start that student chapter. Came out and did the productivity seminar. And the faculty advisor that was there for the student organizations was also the faculty advisor for the competition teams, and she invited me back to give it to the competition teams. So I did, and the competition team they took all the information and they put together their thesis of why they should win this award. They went to the competition in Birmingham, And they were up against the University of Florida, Auburn, Clemson, Virginia Tech, Georgia Tech, all the construction schools in the Southeast. And they put together this idea that because they understood productivity, they were going to help their subs make more profit. And they went through the numbers that I had gone through in the class and showed a lot of the effects of overtime and weather and all these different things. Well, when they went to the competition, they won the competition. And the faculty advisor invited me to come back. And one of the students said it was the neatest thing that during the award ceremony, he's walking up to get the award, and these Florida and Auburn students were going, who the heck is Southern Polytech, and what did they do to win this? Well, it was through their creativity. They had taken the ideas and just ran with it. And when they did that, they were invited to the national competition. They invited me back to put another seminar together, and so I put this together for them, the creativity and innovation in construction. They went to the national championship, and against Purdue, all the regional teams that won, Caltech, and they won that competition. And it was so neat to see how you give these students the idea, and they took it and ran with it. So we started looking more seriously at the creative side of our business. And this seminar is really not to educate you, but more to inspire you and encourage you to practice. We all do creativity to some extent, but it's really takes some time and thought to divide out some time to be creative. So why do you want to innovate? Well, let's go through a little bit of history. Where am I pointing? A long time ago, hunters and gatherers, they were pretty primitive, and where am I pointing this? Oh, right there. Am I going backwards now?
It's very sensitive.
Sure it is.
It's the bottom arrow.
Okay, thank you. Okay, hunters and gatherers are, basically a very difficult existence. They didn't have the skills and things. Well, as they developed skills, they developed tools, they transformed themselves as they developed those tools into an agricultural age that they went through this intense learning process of how to use the new tools. They raised their kids, they raised crops. Productivity went up during that period. And what happens? Downsizing of the existing hunters and gatherers. Well, most of them lose their jobs. And as you'll see, as we go into the industrial age, the same thing kind of happens. Factories become specialized, and people start scaling things and delegating and mass producing. So when you do that, it takes a skill set to move from one stage to the next. It takes new tools, and you guys are familiar with a lot of the tools that we have in our industry with BIM, and they come up with lasers and laser levels, and now total stations and robotic, and we keep moving. Well, you have to learn to use those tools. It's a mindset, though, of, am I okay with change? And so many of us are not, and it takes a concerted effort to get over that inertia that keeps us from doing that. Well, as people do that, what happened? Farmers became industrialized. They're more productive. They downsize. People lose their jobs again because there's not as big a need for those workers. And as many of you remember, can I get a water? In the productivity seminar, I talked about how as you become more productive, the need for workers decreases. And that's actually a good thing, especially when we're going through E-Verify, when you have not as many craftsmen out there. The people that are more creative and productive don't have as big a need. That's fewer people to manage, that's fewer people to get hurt. There's lots of benefits for that. Well, now we're entering this information age with BIM and LEED and Lean and all these different things that are being thrown at us. well, are we going to outproduce, our predecessors? Or is that workforce going to be reduced? And what's going to happen in our industry? It's going to take a new skill set for us. We're going to have that desire to learn new things. So I want to show you this slide. This is a funny view of how a lot of people in the construction industry sell their product. Uh-oh. Whew, this is sensitive. How do you just... Oh, please, I'm sorry. Can you just double click on the little video, on the picture of it?
Today, I want to talk to you about why you should choose Alpha Construction Company to build this project. We promise to deliver the project on time, within the budget, with good quality and safety. Take a look at this complicated schedule. You probably cannot see the information or digest it properly. Also, take a look at this complicated budget. Again, you probably won't understand it at all. But our theory is that we should cram as much information into this 1-hour presentation as humanly possible. The more information, the better. We really don't need to establish any rapport with you or make any connection with you because you will likely just choose the low bidder anyway. And keep in mind that we have reduced our general conditions and overhead and profit so much that if anything goes wrong, we will be fighting you for every single penny. Thanks for the opportunity. We look forward to working with you.
It's kind of sad, but we can all relate to that. Well, let me show you another example of another company and how they sell. that short, but well, they were selling stuff that didn't even exist. And what blows me away is they did it without even talking. Yet we can relate to it because it's possible. We feel like it may happen in the future. But it's the way they went about selling it that differentiates them. Well, in the construction industry, let's look at how we build. Go ahead, please.
I want everybody to come out the bed.
Pretty sad. All right, how should we build? See the train coming back in the background over there? It's going over a road. Mark is set. Go. You get the idea. Pretty creative. It took a lot of thought, a lot of pre-planning to even come up with the ideas. And so often, the ideas are pretty simple. It's amazing how people can come up with ideas that are so valuable, though. And so let's talk about what that is. What is creativity? What's the difference between creativity and innovation? Well, creativity is the process of engaging in activities that represent new ways of going about your work and attempting new things. It's also the production of new and useful ideas about products, services, processes, and procedures. And most of all, it's the defeat of habit by using originality. So often, we feel like we're in this time crunch, we've got to get something done, and so we just do it the same way we've always done it instead of changing the way we do things. And it can be affected by people, environment, so many different things that affect your ability to be creative. And a lot of times it's just the leader of a company even that allows it. Some companies don't want you to be creative. They want it my way or the highway. It's the same old way. Well, it takes leadership to recognize how important that is. Well, I've noticed one thing about young people that have come to me that want to be an artist. And they'd say, oh, I want to be an artist. And I used to say, are you kidding me? You can't make any money being an artist. But I realized that the draw to be creative for them was so great. It was way more than the amount of money they could make or anything else. It was just that feeling you get from being creative. Well, you rub it, don't you? I was pushing it. So you get a lot of individual fulfillment, better group productivity, development of successful business ventures, and I think that's what we all need and look at, and a general well-being of happiness and a good feeling. Well, so do you want your employees to be creative? One is you have to be open to change. And a lot of people aren't. They want the people that you supervise to do it the way you've learned to do it, and the way that you want it done. But so you have to be open to change. It means giving up some control, tolerating risk, tolerating mistakes and failure, I think is the biggest, because people are going to make mistakes. They are going to try new things that aren't going to work, and you have to be willing to allow that to happen. Well, Toyota is a good example of going through, they've done lots of studies on Toyota about how they changed as a company. And if you look at this slide, back in 1951, they started taking suggestions. They had 789 suggestions, or 0.1 per person. 80% participated, and they adopted 23%. By 1971, they had 88,000, 2.2 suggestions per person. Participation rate was now up to 67%, and they adopted 72. In 86, that jumped to 2.6 million. 48 suggestions per person. That's huge. 95% participation rate. That's huge. And 96% adoption rate. And that transformed that company to where the cars they make, now they're into Lexus and so many other brands even that are just world-renowned for quality, efficiency, and value. And that's really what we want to do, is sell value to our customers. We want to provide that value. We want to become indispensable to our customers. And that is by differentiating and bringing more value than what they're paying us. Well, what's innovation then? It's the process of transforming that idea. So it's not just coming up with the idea, it's transforming it into a revenue and profit. So there is a difference between the creativity side. You can be real creative, but unless you actually adopt and apply those things, you're not going to generate revenue. A lot of you guys may be involved in ABC or AGC or lots of different organizations, and they have Excellence in Construction Awards in these organizations. And so often, you at the end of the job, you look back and say, well, what do we do? What can we give this award for? Instead of looking at it at the beginning of the job and saying, hey, let's win this award. What are we going to do to win this award on this job? And spend some time brainstorming and going through different aspects of the job that are difficult that maybe we can change to where we can improve the industry. What if you were in the construction of the payphone, and this guy comes along? That's what will basically happen to you. How many of y'all know where payphones are anymore? You can't find them anymore. Everyone carries around a cell phone, and a lot of people carry the Apple phones. And it's been amazing to see what that one individual and what he knew about creativity and innovation changed that company. I highly recommend you read this book, The Innovation Secrets of Steve Jobs, because he understood that it was actually a process of being creative, that it just doesn't happen. And he realized that the more experiences you have in life, the more experiences you have to bear. And he talks about when he dropped out of school, college, he took a class in calligraphy. And when he did that, he learned how to draw. Y'all familiar with calligraphy? It's real fancy writing. Well, back when I had my first computer, it had one font. It was just it was like a typewriter. Well, he went to his engineers and said, hey, I'd like some calligraphy in here. They're like, wow, yeah. And so all of a sudden, multiple fonts was born. He went to Xerox, and he saw the mouse being used. They couldn't figure out how to use the mouse with copiers. And he's thinking, oh, data entry. And hired a guy, and all of a sudden, the mouse was being used for his new computer. He went to China and saw a rice cooker that had a magnetic plug on it, so that if kids hit it, the cord would come loose because it was by a magnet, and it wouldn't pull the hot rice over on him. So he's, I got to use this in my computers. In most Apple products now have a magnet as the cord. So he realized that it was this process of combining your life experiences. So he started hiring people that had multiple life experiences. It wasn't someone that knew was real good at one thing. He knew that if he hired someone that was really good in music and really good in some other field, in computers, and he put them together, they're combining their life experiences to bring you something like the iPod. Because of the music, because of the ability to combine those experiences, they can come up with new and creative products. Like the iPad, it revolutionizes our lives, really. If you own any of their stock, it's amazing. They also did this at Procter & Gamble, and this is another really good book that I recommend, because it talks about the process also of what they went through to change that company and make it an incredible company through creativity and innovation. So let's see some samples of creativity in construction. They are preparing to build a 30-story building in 15 days from start to finish. I don't know if you could read that, a 9 magnitude earthquake resistant. Five times more energy efficient. 4-pane windows. External solar shading. Internal window insulation. heat recovery of fresh air, 20 times pure air. 3-stage air filtration. Air quality monitoring. Now, since that time, they've done taller buildings and more buildings to the point where if they can do that over there, they can do that over here. And there are already Chinese companies coming into the United States to use their technology and their creativity, and we're going to be competing with that. And we're going to be, if we aren't up with everything, we're going to be taken over in our own country by people that are more creative. Skanska, the Miami Valley Hospital up in Ohio, I love this on the website if you Google this. On that description of the project, they said in a meeting of the minds, they inadvertently stumbled on this idea to prefab some of the bathroom pods. Let's watch this little video of it. No? Okay. Well, let me just explain what happened then. The subcontractors would never be able to get together and come up with an idea by themselves to work together. It takes a general contractor to bring those subcontractors together. Well, they did that in that meeting. And they came up with the idea of, they'd seen this happen in hotels in Vegas, but it had never been done in a medical facility. So they came up with the idea of building these pods of the bathrooms in a warehouse. And as they produced them, they realized, well, this is a lot safer, it's a lot more productive. Once you get them out to the job site, it's incredibly more productive. They were able to build that job way safer than you would normally do. They all made a lot more money, all the subs, the general. They inadvertently stumbled upon that idea. When they came down to New Orleans, they used that as their example. They won the job in New Orleans at the University Medical Center because they had used this on a job that they inadvertently, in a planning meeting, sat down and came up with the idea of, hey, let's make the pods. Then they said, hey, why don't we make the head walls that way? So they plumbed them, they wired them, everything, they were all made, and they brought them to the job site. Then they said, hey, let's do the tracks in the corridors. And they put 30-foot tracks, metal cages that had all the plumbing, the electrical, everything was tagged. It was all on BIM to show the owner, hey, here's all these individual pieces, here's where everything goes. Way more effective and productive. So when they go back to New Orleans now to sell the job, they just show the example of the job they just finished. Of course they're going to beat out their competition. And that's how you do it, is through creative. You differentiate yourself so much through that creative process that you win work and become more profitable through it. Well, now, let's go back to that. Since that happened, there's been companies that have sprung up that all they do is build bathroom pods. And recently I saw an invitation to bid in Gainesville, Florida for a project, and it had bathroom pods as one of the bid items. Companies like this will bid just the bathroom pods. So it's transforming the industry to a whole new level. Let's watch this video. on the industry advisory board at Southern Polytech, and after their creativity took them to the national championship, they decided, the industry advisory board said, let's build a building, and let's have it the most creative building we can have for a building construction, building sciences building in the country. We got architects on board, people started donating money, people wanted to be involved in that process of creativity, and it was amazing the things we came up with. There's windmills across the top, there's solar panels, there's green roofs, there's just water collection systems, and the way the sun comes in, the way the building's oriented, and how it's all open as a teaching tool. It led, after that was all developed, to a international knowledge center for creativity. And it was so neat to be a part of that, because they got with the governor and said, hey, we need to teach LEED for the whole state. So the governor had all of the schools in the state become green buildings. So they started working with the Green Building Council, the SGBC, and got them involved. And it was those combining of different people's ideas and experiences to come up with something really, really innovative and creative for that school. And it's so rewarding to be a part of something like that.
It may look like.
Go ahead and try that.
It may look like something out of a science fiction movie, but Italian architect David Fisher showed up in New York Tuesday saying that he was poised to build the world's first moving building in Dubai.
First of all, it's the first building that is dynamic, changing the shape. You can adjust the shape the way you like every given moment.
The model being pitched is an 80-story skyscraper with revolving floors that would provide residents with a constantly changing view of the Persian Gulf. A few apartments that would take up entire floors would be able to spin on command, while the rest of the building rotated in patterns that could be altered over time.
It's designed by life, shaped by time.
But movement isn't the only unique feature about this building. Designers say they plan to build it all in a factory in Italy. When it's complete, they'll ship the structure to Dubai, where they hope it will be ready for offices and residents by 2010. And for those of you worried about getting dizzy, Fisher says not to worry. Says the rotations will be slow enough that they won't be noticed. Orla Reese, Associated Press. It may look like something out of a science.
Well, the greatest danger for all of us is that we don't aim high enough, because so often, I think in life, we don't set goals. So we don't take the time to plan, where are we going next individually? Where are we going as a company? And I know Lemoine is probably one of the best companies that I've seen that encourages change and encourages creativity. And encourages their subcontractors to be that way too. And we experienced that on the LSU stadium when we were asked to come in and partner with you guys and come up with a creative way of making that job go better. And it just took sitting down and brainstorming with everyone to come up with a different system that was going to be faster and build the building faster. And that's what's important, is going to people that are experts in their field or have different experiences and combining those experiences to come up with something really, really cool. But here's what we're up against. We've got to see this.
Go to the next slide.
Oh no. This is my best video.
We'll get it going. We're going out of base.
You try and double click me on it? Yeah. It must. And you copied all the videos over? Okay, well, we'll give up on it. Google Steve Skylift. It's hilarious. It really is funny. But I want to end with a really funny video. Sorry it didn't work out. Thank you. Any questions you guys have for me? Hopefully it was encouraging, and like I said, it was not necessarily educational, but it was to encourage you guys to practice.
Hi, it's my pleasure.
What's the name of it, Mike?
Steve, maybe Steve Skyjack, or you don't see it, maybe it didn't copy over. Well, thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Mike, thank you. I think we got a little something for you here, Mike. We know you're very engaged in some philanthropy, and so we've got a check for you to hopefully help you.
Thank you
Okay?
so much. I appreciate that.
Thanks for everything. So, you know, it is amazing in our business, for as long as man has been building, really how little we've changed, and how archaic, you know, so much of what we do day to day is. Every time I go by a construction site and I see a guy with a sledgehammer driving a wooden stop and setting a form with a 2x4, I just want to go, what? I mean, we're still doing this shit the same way? I mean, come on. You tell me somebody ain't invented a tool to drive a damn stop in the ground like a compactor, or, I mean, we really, it's amazing. You know, you talk about BIM on the one hand, you talk about all this computerization, but you go out there and you see some of the things we do. And I'm telling you, you know, Teresa's going to show a slide that says I've been here for, I don't know, 35 years or so. And in some ways as an industry, we just don't change. And so, you know, what Mike was talking about is everybody in this room can change tomorrow. It's a decision. We can get better, we can innovate. But the real magic is when we share the innovation. The real magic is when we get it to work across an organization and then across an industry. You know, that's what Steve Jobs was the genius about. Some people come up with great ideas, but he transformed the world, one man. And so, you know, some of you guys do it in the field. And in a minute, I'm going to introduce another speaker to you. I was getting ready to, the Water Institute campus that we have a soft commitment on down the street here, could be as much as 2 million square feet. John Davies, who runs the Baton Rouge Area Foundation, was born and raised in China for the first 10 years of his life. Then from 10 to like 20 was in Lima, Peru. Guy wound up being a soccer player, school teacher, hippie, kind of tooling around the country for a while, teaching school, and then wound up getting a job to run the Baton Rouge Area Foundation when I think it was at about, maybe it was $10 million in assets. It's now a $600 million foundation. And he is one of the smartest human beings I've ever been in a room with. So John has this dream and creates a vision to build a water campus on the Mississippi River because he sees what happened with Katrina. He sees what happened with all of this coastal erosion. And it wasn't until he saw Sandy hit the East Coast and he woke up and said, now, the wealthiest people in this country now know what a hurricane can do to you. And we couldn't get any funding. We couldn't get people interested in hurricanes because, you know, out of sight, out of mind, those crazy, stupid coon-asses, they'll get hit by one and they'll wait and get hit by another. But John sees the moment, and he went to the Rockefeller Foundation and he said, you know what? This country needs to wake up. We got to deal with this, and we got to deal with it in a holistic fashion. And he wound up setting off a chain of reactions and of responses and of innovation, and got people interested and said, listen, the place to deal with water is on the Mississippi River. Let's bring the best and the brightest scientists in the world to Baton Rouge, Louisiana, and let's deal with coastal erosion. Let's deal with hurricane protection, and let's deal with water as a resource that we live with instead of something we're trying to avoid. So I was lucky enough about 2 weeks ago to accompany John and a group of people to the Netherlands. 60% of the people in the Netherlands live below sea level. I mean, it is amazing what they have done. And we got to go see the Port of Rotterdam, and I'm not going to bore you with that, but it was the most extreme example of innovation. These guys have taken 50 square miles that was water, and it's dry land and one of the most productive ports in the world now. The new expansion, $12 billion, was done in 28 months. All of the cranes and all of the vehicles that will move 45,000 containers a day. The cranes don't have people on them, and the carriers that the cranes drop the containers on don't have people on them. The cranes move so fast that a person literally cannot stay on it. And, just all of it done by people innovating and saying there's a better way, and that, because we're in the Netherlands and because of our attitude, we're gonna figure out a better way to do it. So I think Mike's message was exciting. But right before I left, you think you know what people in your community do. You think you know what the guy down the street does. I've known a guy named Chuck Vincent and his son Chris for a lot of years. Adam flies airplanes with Chuck. I've been on a couple of trips with Chuck, and all I knew was that Chuck and Chris were in some kind of satellite business that related to the oil field. And that Chuck, I remember when Chuck opened a little computer shop years ago in Lafayette. So Chuck calls me and says, "Hey, I want to come see you. I want to come talk to you about the Water Institute." And I said, "What's going to talk about the Water Institute for?" So they come over to the office. I sit down and start talking to them, and they start telling me that they're in smart building technology and that they're now doing major construction projects around the state, and that they're integrating building systems. And it was a really interesting discussion. I said, "Well, look, we're going to have a little presentation on innovation. I want you to send one of your guys over to tell us what a company in Lafayette, Louisiana, down the street from us is doing that I had no idea they were doing and could do." Ironically, I go to the Netherlands. I go to a meeting, and Cisco sends people over from the U.S. to present to us in the Netherlands on this water campus about the future of smart buildings. And lo and behold, in the discussion with Cisco about people that are great at doing it, the name of this company in Lafayette, Louisiana came up. So, we got some people in Louisiana that can innovate. And so I'm going to introduce to you Robert Guidry, who works with their organization. Hadn't seen the presentation, I've never met Robert before today, but want to thank him in advance for taking time to share with us what y'all are doing.
You are.
So thank you very much for, that's a little loud. Thanks very much for giving me the time to speak with you today. I know it's a busy schedule for you guys. It's a Friday afternoon. I think I have about 15 minutes or so to present. One of the things we want to talk about is really preparing for the next generation of buildings. So a lot of this is going to be around smart buildings and so forth. And what I want to do is kind of do a little bit of a transition from what we've seen over the past few years to where we see construction going as these architectures are coming together. I enjoyed Mike's presentation. Given I wasn't privy to that one, just point out that Global Data Systems is one of the subcontractors on the Skanska project that you mentioned earlier. So I'm going to make a couple of references to that as well. So one of the things that Global Data Systems does, and other than our satellite communications, we're a long-standing Cisco partner. So for those individuals who are not familiar with it, Cisco Systems is the manufacturer of networking equipment that powers the internet. So So almost everything that you do, going from your home to your schools to your office to almost hospitals, everything will have some sort of networking technology that enables it. Generally speaking, we're coming in after the fact. After a building has been constructed, it's met the customer specifications, you have your lights, you have your utilities, your water, and so forth. But it's really not customer ready for them to operate. They're generally having to bring in some items to make the building ready for them. So what we've seen in the past, these are the things that the building brings in. These are common terms for you. Now, some of the things that are probably used, some of the energy monitoring and control systems, we talked about smart buildings, making them green, making them energy efficient. But that's generally kind of where we've seen in the past where it's been stopped. To make the building useful to the end user, to the occupants, you're bringing in a number of things. The general data networking infrastructure. This is for all the computers to operate, whether it's wired or wireless. You certainly have a communication system. I move away from the term of a phone system. Phone system, you just pick up, you dial someone, you reach the person on the other end. We're really looking at a communication system to allow multiple ways for two individuals or a group of individuals to be able to collaborate. It could be voice, it could be video, it could be instant messaging. It's really about finding the right person with the right skill set at the right time. In our world of security and safety, you're very safety conscious, a little bit different from the safety that briefing we had earlier. It's more about protecting your assets and so forth. Access control is a big piece of it. Who's allowed to get into the system? When can they get into the system? There's certainly a certain degree of video surveillance, again, going back to the safety and security concept. Certain organizations have a lower pain threshold. School systems, for example, very low pain threshold. You will have to bring in these type systems, and we'll talk a little bit about how we can integrate them together. And then certainly the wireless. So the world that I live in, and I'll try not to do that again, is really... Is there a way we can turn this down a bit? I'm actually used to talking without these things in a room this size. So this is a little bit overwhelming. But these are all the things that we bring into a building. Some of the things you guys are pre-positioning, many of these things are not. Again, we talked about access control, we talked about video surveillance, you bring in your HVAC systems. There's some building automation that's starting to be introduced. Fire alarm system, communication systems, wireless, visitor management. If you have a multi-tenant building that you're setting up, how are people allowing the tenants to have access into the building and how they're letting their guests and visitors have access into the system as well too. We also bring in a significant amount of information security. We think about security most of the part from a physical perspective. You talk to an IT guy, you mention the word security to him, he's going to think about, well, how's my data protected? So there's going to, all of these items right here are things that we typically add to a network. Once you guys have turned the keys over to the building operator, we come back behind and do that. Not really a very efficient way to do that. It's better for these systems to be introduced close at the time of architecture and building and so forth. So we're going to talk about that a little bit. So the common deployments that we see today, and I say this is probably the last 5 years, you start to see the architects bringing in this level of activity or capabilities into the building. Now, one of the drawbacks, though, is they're generally siloed. They'll have a specification that says, I need access control. There's a very different specification. They'll say, I need to bring in video surveillance. But by the way, I need some alarming for it. So all of them are, by design, completely separate systems. By their nature, they do not interoperate with each other very much at all. And we'll talk about how we can bridge that gap. Where we see this going is some of these new frontiers. Again, large organizations, multi-tenant properties, building automation. We kind of talked about that a little bit a while ago. Mass emergency notification systems. Again, going back to certain organizations that have a low threshold of pain for safety and security. School systems, hospital environments, especially if you go near a ward that has infants and so forth, you'll see a high degree of security. What's going on in that environment, and how can that environment react to the presence of an individual in those environments. We also want to be able to communicate that information out. We want to manage the logical access to the identity of individuals coming into the building. So think about it this way. If I come into the building and I badge you, that's a simple thing of using a badge control and saying, okay, Robert Gidger is now in the building. Well, there's a few things that can occur at this point, or maybe should be prevented if I am not in the building. So for example, should I have access to any of the IT systems that are in the building if I've not badged into the building? So now I've created some sort of physical and logical association. Likewise, if I haven't badged into the building, should the power in my area be brought up to speed? So this goes back to building controls and energy conservation as well too. So there's ways to tie all of these systems together, which in the past used to have to be separate systems. And that's where a company like Global Data Systems would have come into play. If you take a look at it, all of them now reside on the network. What used to be physically separate systems now are combined on one network. Now, the interesting piece is some of the systems that you're putting in today, for example, HVAC systems, building automation, things like that, those are items that require a network. They have to have the communication, the base communication with these systems to talk. Then after you move out, the customer has to come in and say, okay, I need an even bigger network to bring all of my stuff together. So what we're finding now is that we're working with architects and the builders much earlier in the cycle. What we're seeing, and in the case of the ScanScope project, we actually brought in, during the construction phase, the entire network IT infrastructure. We brought in all the wireless and switch networks, not only to handle all the building controls and automations and everything like that, but we already extracted from the customer what their needs are going to be. So we shifted something that was generally a post-construction type activity to actually even before the construction began in the design phase. Communication systems, at this particular juncture, this customer says, when I move in, when I'm ready for occupancy, these are the systems that have to be ready for me to be able to make use of that building. If not, that's another 4, 5, 6 months before that customer can start realizing the benefit of that particular building. We brought in access control, video surveillance, environmental monitoring, and energy control capabilities. Some of these we've actually brought in that functionality, and in other cases we've actually provided an underlying network architecture that it takes for these technologies to operate. So a couple of things we talked about right here, and I'll reference safety and security in schools. Okay, so one of the things we take a look at is how do we differentiate between a fire alarm. So we have something that's creating heat and creating smoke and something like that, and we want to trigger the fire alarm and send out to a certain notification, versus, okay, I've got a bearing going bad in an HVAC system. It's creating temperature variations. It's creating heat. It's a problem, but it's more of a facilities problem. So as you start deploying sensors throughout the environment for temperature, humidity, acoustics, and so forth, you can detect the different types of events that are occurring in the environment and report it to the correct individuals that need to be able to respond to it. You don't want a fireman to come in to work on your HVAC systems. Likewise, we can take multiple systems together. So for example, the access control and video surveillance. Some of the customers we worked with, one of their big concerns, because they have remote locations that are generally unmanned, they'll have an event that occurred. Someone broke into a building, and maybe it's after hours and so forth. So all they did was, okay, I've got an alarm. They had to dispatch someone. That could be 20, 30, 40 minutes before someone actually got there. By then, the significant event is over. We tie in access control and video surveillance. At the time we receive that alarm, we say, okay, show me the video of what's going on at that time. So immediately we can get video verification of that particular event, and we can respond accordingly. So was it really an intruder, or was it someone that would just leave the back door open? So we want to bring these systems together and make some intelligent decision-making process there. Features and benefits. One of the biggest features is a single network for both the building functions and the tenant functions. It does not make sense really to have two completely separate networks. And many times, every one of those individual systems have their own network. So you've really taken 5, 6, 7 different networks and brought it together, working on one common network. Someone's going to come up with some objections to that piece. You can easily overcome those objections by talking about quality of service, dependability of the equipment, long mean time between failures of equipment. So we're talking about very good high caliber equipment here. We talked again about integration, which has historically been disparate systems. Phone systems didn't talk to the fire alarm system and so forth. So once we take an event in from any one of these systems, we can send them out through email, we can send them out through phones, we can send them out through SMS messaging to your phones and stuff like that. So basically one common system. And certainly something you're familiar with, energy savings. As long as we can determine who's coming into the building, when they're coming in, who's there, how long they're there, we can start adjusting the environmental controls to meet the needs of the occupants. Benefits, simplified support. If you go to a very large, very mature campus with 10 different systems, they're going to have to bring in multiple skill sets to be able to maintain these systems. So that turns to the operational cost increase for those building owners and operators. We can certainly reduce costs by leveraging common requirements. So if you're selling a customer something, you might think this is a little bit counterintuitive. It's like, whoa, hold on a second. I'm going to reduce my capital cost as I'm selling this stuff. Well, what ends up happening in most cases that we've gone to is we've answered 4, 5, or 6 different specifications, and we say, okay, instead of you buying this from 6 or 7 different people, I can wrap all of these solutions together into one solution for you. So in this particular case, we basically have the advantage because we've provided something to the customer that is tangible to them. It goes back to, is this building ready for occupancy, and is it ready for their day-to-day business operations? And again, we talked briefly about lower operating costs as well. So that's kind of all I had for you guys today. Again, this is really a kind of a high level. One of the things that we were talking about, in creativity and innovation earlier, I would say that this is prime time for this type of conversation, the knowledge gaining here. Most customers do not have design capabilities for this. So what we over at Global Data Systems try to do is let's start talking to architects at the very beginning, talk to the builders, your general contractors, electrical contractors, and so forth, and let's start that design phase much earlier on, and basically still working with the ultimate building owners and occupants. But one of the things we want to drive is how do they want to behave? How do they want the building to be able to support their particular needs? So there's also a consultative phase in that piece as well. So, if you want to know any more about Global Data Systems, you can hit our website, www.getgds.com, or you can hit our YouTube page, youtube.com/user/getgds. I'll hang around for a little bit longer if anybody has any questions. If not, certainly feel free to reach out to us, and there's about us and contact us at each of these links up here.
All right, so before we go to break, just a thought, why should we be interested in this? Because at the end of the day, when you think about the brand promise, it's the right people, the right solutions, building peace of mind. We've got to be able to know more about what is available to the customer. We have to be in a position, sometimes in the near future, where we get beyond building physical buildings. And we can go to a customer and show them from a technological standpoint for, as I understand it from Mark Moses, in the case of University Hospital, when Skanska took a price on temperature controls from the mechanical contractor and took separate prices on fire alarm and separate from the electrical contractor. When they set those numbers aside, and went with this combined solution where everything was operating off of one platform, my understanding the savings was in the millions of dollars to the customer. And the customer has a system that operates much more effectively and will also be able to interface with inventory control of equipment such as pumps. They literally got this thing down where a nurse can bring up on her phone and go, oh, the respiratory pump's in room 225, because it's tagged to a little, you know, RFID that's moving around the building, and the system is tracking it. So there's so much more that we can do for our customer if we understand it. I'm told the girl that put this whole thing together over there in this hospital is 28 years old and negotiated and has managed the whole process. So, you know, innovation, technology, all those things are ways to differentiate ourselves. The one thing Mike didn't tell you about Skanska on the hospital where they first deployed this technology is that necessity is the mother of all innovation. The job was behind schedule, weather was beating them up, and literally they were going to be late and face substantial liquidated damages. That was the time that a team of people came together and said, what can we do? And that's where that whole approach was really born, which has really propelled that organization from a marketing standpoint into a really unique place. So, you know, people thinking out of the box, people looking for a different way have yielded great results. So let's go to break real quick. We'll try to be back in here. I think we're a little ahead of schedule. So let's try to be back in here by 2:45. Thank you.
White male, black coveralls, bald cap.
Sir, pull that bitch to the side of the road. Stop now.
I'm very glad you're talking.
443.
What the heck are you doing out here?
43 truck.
I'm working a job site right there, man.
45.
Right down there, what are you doing out here? What are you doing in this thing?
I just came to get some lunch and sodas and whatnot for the guys.
What's your name?
Steve.
Steve? I can't have you driving up down the street in this Skyjack. You're sitting on beer. What about that beer there I saw you drinking coming down the driveway?
Earlier.
Steve, I can't have you driving down the road in the Skyjack drinking beer. Come on down and talk to me here for a minute. Let's figure this out.
Man, I gotta get back to work.
Now, just come on down, get this figured out, and we'll get you back to work.
Oh.
Steve, come on down. Steve?
How about that?
I'll tell you what, Steve, we can do this the easy way, or we can do it the hard way.
Come on up.
The hard way is to do the bill and stop by the hospital.
Oh, maybe I'll come down. Maybe I won't. Maybe I won't.
Steve?
Come get me.
Come on down. Just come on down, let's work this out, get you back to work.
Why don't you just go on your way and I'll go on my way?
I'm giving you one more chance, Steve. Come on down the easy way.
I know my right.
All right. You want to play it the hard
I
way?
pay your salary.
You want to play it the hard way?
I pay your salary. I pay your salary. How you like that?
Are you going to come down, or are we going to bring you down, Steve?
Well, why don't you do your thing?
Right.
751.
What are you doing, man? What are you... I'm having a rest. I'm 2 blocks from my work.
Put that cigarette down.
247.
Put your cigarette down.
Subject 1, please stay on the vehicle. Case doesn't have anybody right now.
Want me to come in, or you want to come over here?
Hey, wherever you go. Come on, man. Hey. Where you going?
Now stop resisting. Stop resisting.
Don't fuck up my beer now.
We could have did this the easy way, but no, you had to do it the hard way, so.
Oh, my balls. You said it was cold. Come on, man. I know my life. Dang it, dude. It's just a fucking
everybody. Our next section, titled People, will cover a few topics. First off, we want to introduce new hires. I know most people are able to see the announcements that go out, but we want to be able to introduce in person those new hires. So as we call your name, and these go back to the last summer's meeting, so we have quite a few, as you can see here, that have started with us since then. So we'd ask that if you could stand up, kind of give a few seconds of your background, how long you've been with Lemoine, and what project you're working on, or maybe what your role is with the organization. So first up, we have Stephen Glover. Stephen's here.
I'm going to grab one of them.
We'll come back to Stephen. Andrew Hill is next.
Hi, I've been with Lemoine since October last year. Working on the IBM project as a senior PE, working on the structure.
Concrete.
Let's wait till the end to applaud. Tracy Martin.
On vacation.
Okay, good for you, Tracy. Jacob Jack.
I've been with Lemoine for 5 months now. The New Orleans East Hospital project. The project engineer now. Slash assistant superintendent in the morning. Well,
Thanks, Jacob.
Oh, I'm from Arkansas.
Stand here and see him. No. Josh Cloud.
Speak up.
Josh Cloud. I started with Lemoine in November. I'm working on New Orleans East project. Assistant superintendent.
Where you from?
I grew up in this New Orleans area. I went to school in Lafayette.
Darren Scott.
Hey everybody, I'm Darren Scott. I am one of the new lead people. I'm a project engineer. I'm working on estimating with Barry and all the guys. I think we're wrapping up a few estimates in New Orleans and a couple of areas, so hopefully we can show out some projects.
Where you from?
Homa.
Where'd you go to school?
LSU.
Carson Marco.
Carson Marconi, recently from Edmond, Oklahoma. I'm working with the guys at IBM as a project engineer.
Robert Harrison. Robert Harrison's a field engineer. He's probably out.
He's at the job site.
He's on the job site at IBM. Pamela Goba.
I work in accounting and I process temp labor and help with accounting invoices, and I'm from Versailles.
Jim Polite.
I'm Jim Polite. I started over the last couple of weeks. I work for Southern Special Projects as a concrete superintendent, and I'm working
Christina McGarry.
I'm Christina. I'm Lenny's assistant, and I started working in November.
Bless you.
I enjoy my job.
And finally, Mike Best, who started this week.
Mike Best, I'm from New Hampshire and originally upstate New York. I'm down at the Elks Project in New Orleans and assistant superintendent.
Thanks, Mike. Y'all please join me in welcoming our new crew.
Stefan's involved in a crisis and
Sorry.
lost power.
Power outage. Got to deal with it. It's nice to meet you guys.
Stefan is a project manager down at Elks Place in New Orleans. So next, we want to recognize those who have been promoted in the last year. It's an honor for us to congratulate you as you move through the organization into new opportunities. So first up, we have Robert Winberger, and this was a while back, project engineer. Charlie Provenza. Did I see Charlie here today?
Yeah, I heard it.
There he is.
Y'all stand up. Charlie, stand up. Robert, stand up.
Stand up. Stay standing.
Stay standing.
Stay standing.
Stay standing, Wingbird. Stay standing.
Top of your chair,
Stay up.
Taylor.
There's Taylor. All right.
Katie Pavlis, project engineer.
That was stand up.
There's Katie.
Tamika Mouton, Tamika here, to County Associate.
Vacation 2 more?
Carl Hastings to Project Superintendent. Chase Guidry to Project Engineer. Mitchell Garner to Estimator. Michael Galasso to Assistant Project Manager. And finally, our most recent, Greg Ellison to Project Manager.
Great job, Glenn.
So at our last continuous improvement meeting, we announced service anniversaries. This year, what we would like to do is commemorate those anniversaries and actually give out awards. So we're going to go back again and note those that have hit those major milestones, and we'll kind of explain what you can expect going forward as far as your award. So our first and our only 35 years of service is Mr. Lenny Lemoine. And we do have a plaque award for you. Come forward.
35 is half of 70.
Well, we need
So as you can tell, we have been here for 36 years in 2014, but we're going to commemorate people that reached the 35-year mark. And then we'll go back to those that reached the 30-year mark. So first off, and I don't know if I saw Dale.
No,
Dale's not here either. Dale is actually at 33 years, and we do have an award for him that we'd like to get to him. So there's maybe a teammate that can bring it to us.
Where's Dale working? So, Ronnie, if he's here when this is over, maybe we can run by there and take care of that.
actually, he's went back home. He had some
Okay. All right.
issues.
Joe Ponte, Jr.? Hey, Joe, come on up. We want to get Joe made 32 years this year. And Joe, if you could hang up front, we want to get kind of a group shot of those that made 30 years. Next, Don Broussard. And our last 30-year milestone, Brad Landry. So these guys, along with their plaque, will receive a gift of $125 per year of service, in addition to a little token Lands End gift certificate for some Lemoine gear. Show your plaque.
Yeah, show your plaque.
Where's your plaque at, man?
Oh, I got my plaque. Got my name on it.
Thanks,
All
guys.
right. Greg whispered to me, it seems like I started yesterday.
I don't believe that.
That's what he said.
So for 25 years, we have one recipient, Bob Wilson. Is Bob here? Our field engineers are very busy. So we'll need to catch up with Bob. Is he still at LSU?
Yes.
Okay. So we'll
Mike,
need to-
maybe take care of that Monday meeting.
So just to note, the 25-year milestone is $100 per year of service. 20 years, Mark Broussard. Mark's our only 20-year veteran, and he's actually at 22 years in 2014, and will receive $75 per year service and a Lands End gift certificate. Next is 15 years of service. First up, Robin Thibodeau at 17 years. I thought I saw Robin, no? And also Craig Knott, 17 years. Craig's not here either. Doug Hobson, I did see Doug. flat trough players. Are these guys? Michael Lemoine.
Mike Lemoine.
Brady Lemoine. And finally, Ronnie Patton.
That's a good class right there.
So these guys, for 15 years of service, will receive $50 per year of service plus a Lands End gift card.
Getting close.
Oh, you want,
Man, we can barely see you.
The next group is the last group that will formally recognize with plaques. So the 10-year mark is where you'll receive that plaque service award as your first major milestone. So for 10 years, Sean Landry. Carl Schecksnyder.
Teresa Jones.
That's amazing right there. That's a milestone.
Andrew Sexton. Jerry Smith. Pat Jones. This is our largest class, so there'll be 2 slides of 10-year vets. Barrett Landry. Jason Miranda. Mike Rice. Craig Short. And Richard. Fritz Saltz. Ken Burdette. Two rows of people for this picture.
You're gonna have to get in the back. Send it in the back. One to the front.
now move over to the left, away from the speaker.
Shouldn't Teresa be in the picture?
Where's Teresa? Am I blocking Fritz? Can you see Fritz's head?
1, 2, 3.
Your hands over.
Okay. So this group, reaching 10 years, will get $350 flat and a Lands End gift card. And for those of you that have also reached 5 years, we would like to present to all of you a Lands End gift card. So instead of calling our names coming up and get them, if you see your name up here, we've got a gift card for you, so we want to get it to you. For those people that aren't here, well, they'll make their way out to those in the room.
How about everybody that's here, that's one of these folks, please raise your hand and stand up, please. Anybody that's on
Josh,
that list?
Chase, Jack, Daryl, Rudy, Lance Rude, Dave, Carl, Brian Hoffman, Peter Mark, Todd McKee, Mark McIntyre, Troy Moore, Brian O'Connor, Taylor Fontaine, Belinda Rose, Jeff Sanford, Brian Day, and Wes Wallace. They all reached their 5+ year mark.
is the first. You know, we talk about relationships and wanting everybody in the organization to treat people and other organizations the right way and to do what you can for them. And this year we received something in the mail. It's the first time I've ever seen anything like this, where a company that we do some work with named an estimator of the year for the whole state, and they chose Jamie Hebert. Jamie, come up. So this says Construction Estimator of the Year, Jamie Hebert of Lemoine Company by Cornerstone Commercial Flooring, and it includes not only a plaque, Jamie, but apparently you're going on a cruise for your choice of the Western Caribbean, Bahamas, or someplace in Mexico.
Anywhere sounds good
Yeah.
to me.
Come on, Jamie.
Okay. Just like that. Is this good? Okay. Okay. 1, 2, 3.
Okay, so for those of you who were at the last meeting and even some of the meetings before that, I think you know that we've been picking a project for every meeting that we think best lives and supports our foundations for successful execution. And I'll turn it over to Will Lemoine. Will?
All right, I was asked not to be too long-winded and give away all the contents of the story of this project, so I'll try to do my best. And I'm sure everybody read my article in Lemoine lately about this project, right? So, the Freeport-McMoran project team consisted of it was 2 projects actually. This client came to us, I think, back in 2012 through some friends of ours, and we worked with them on a design-build concept in Santa Maria, Texas. Anybody know where that's at? I think we could safely say it's in the middle of nowhere or close to it. So very tough conditions. The subcontractor market was a challenge. I'm sure they'll tell you about that. But ultimately, we pulled together a project with them, and just because of the upfront work that was done by Mike Rice and the team pulling the project together to get started, they brought us in for a much bigger project, which they're going to tell you about. So I'm going to call up Andrew. I think Greg Eckler is down working in Plaquemines, Robert Winter, Lori Brasso, Rob is not here, and Josh and Chase to tell you about these 2 projects.
All right. We're going to try to overcome this microphone situation, so we'll just pin it right here and toggle back and forth a little bit. The first project that we're going to show you is the project that we went to Eagle Ford and executed. Rendering of both projects. So the first thing we wanted to address is get some perspective of where Eagle Ford actually is. And as you can see, kind of center of slide is the Houston region, and the little pyramid is our job site. North Mexico? North, yes. Travel distance stats are there.
And I live in Walker, and that's an extra 20 miles from Baton Rouge. 500 miles to my house.
Correct.
About an 8-hour drive. Not fun by yourself.
What was it with the camper? How long did it take you to get there with the camper? 12 hours?
No, it took about 10 hours, and I never lived in a camper before. And I know we got on time constraints, so I'm going to try to make it quick. But, you know, I didn't know where I was going to live. I leave Lafayette at 12 o'clock noon, okay? And I'm headed to Santa Maria. You know, I'm kind of excited, and you know, it starts getting dark, and I'm going, and it's rolling hills through Santa Maria. and the sun goes down, and it almost looks like the Gulf Coast with all the oil rigs drilling everywhere. But because that's what you see everywhere, you just see all these oil derricks everywhere. I mean, as far as you can see, it's just oil rigs drilling. And I pull up, I finally almost ran out of gas. I mean, I had like a mile of gas left, and I found one lone gas station that didn't have an attendant. You just had to put your card in, and luckily they took our card. So I was able to get gas, but I almost ran out with a camper behind me. And I found a campground, and you know, they were open, and there was one spot left, so I was able to sleep that night. But that was definitely an experience that I'll never forget.
All right, so we've got the foundation presentation. We're going to go through some specific topics. We'll let Josh talk about the safety piece.
PXP is an oil and gas company. They have a lot stricter safety regulations than we do. Like we have some that we go over OSHA on some things. They go really way over OSHA. A couple of things is they have a 4-foot tie-off policy in lieu of our 6-foot tie-off policy. Our safety sign, it has like the 10 major safety rules. I had to scratch out 6-foot tie-off and put a 4-foot, so everybody was aware of it. You had to be tied off on a ladder over 4 foot. You couldn't unload equipment after dark, or you had to have a light plant. That was something new to us. But they had several things that we had to adjust to. But for the most part, they were we were pretty close with how they ran their business. The whole time we were there, we didn't have a lost time accident at all. Probably 280 something days. Let me skip to the PXP safety meeting. The PXP safety meeting, I got a call at 7 o'clock one morning from, I don't know if it was you or some owner with PXP. One of the owners of PXP that stayed on site came up to me and said, at 9 o'clock we're having a safety, a company-wide safety, it was like a shrimp boil. And I had to shut down my entire crew that morning from, I think, 9 o'clock to like 1 o'clock in the afternoon. I had to shut everybody down that was working on Lemoine job site so they can go down the street to this safety function. And I know a lot of subs were pissed off about it because they were losing, productivity. They had to pay these guys the 4 or 5 hours that we were there. But, it made the owner happy that he wanted all his crews all over the drill site to shut down, including their construction crew on their building to shut down and attend the safety meeting. And we did. And a lot of our subcontractors stayed and was there, so that made it look good for us. Safety crawfish boil, we actually, who was that came down there?
Oh, it was just a friend of mine.
Somebody had a major trip, and we had a safety crawfish boil. The subs were stoked about it. One guy didn't know what he was doing, so he started eating a crawfish. He didn't know how to peel it, he just started eating crawfish. We had to teach a couple people how we eat crawfish.
So, Chris Shears calls me and said it's time for the safety barbecue. However, in this part of the country, barbecue is like making a peanut butter and jelly sandwich.
Barbecue, everywhere you go, probably every street corner there was a barbecue stand. Just a trailer selling barbecue. And they actually had some really good barbecue. South Texas barbecue is really good. I'm sure Wes can identify with that. But no, we weren't going to have a safety barbecue. We had to do like a safety crawfish bowl, make it different for these guys. These guys weren't accustomed to crawfish.
So Chase, come this way and talk about the next topic.
So next up is quality, and obviously every sub except our HVAC sub, we've never worked with before, we had never heard of before. So the first thing we had to do is extensive pre-qualification on every sub that touched the site. I think even the landscaper got an extensive pre-qualification form they filled out and sent back to us. Everybody touched that form. Having them come to the office 500 miles away was kind of infeasible, so we had phone interviews with every sub. Our local, the San Antonio local ABC chapter helped us out by giving us a pretty extensive sub listing, and we even reached out to Vaughn Contracting, which sent us a pretty good listing of their subs that they use in the area. I think Will got that for us from one of his contacts at Vaughn. Miss Lori helped us out with educating everybody on out-of-state, with the Lemoine policies that are out-of-state, including the taxes, insurance policies, lien waivers, everything. Texas is very lenient when it comes to all that. We never had a fire marshal visit. We didn't even have to submit plans, although we did, just to have the, I guess, town, Anna Maria, Torrance City, have them on file.
Yeah, the only real inspection we got was an elevator inspection. And their elevator inspection is way more strenuous than ours here in Louisiana.
So as far as fire marshal, local codes, any of that, it's pretty easy getting away with that because we didn't have any of it. Myself and Josh actually put together most of the tap sheets and did the scope reviews on every sub. So by the time Josh got down there, he pretty much knew what he was going into and he knew what was included on their Schedule A. So
there was a lot of unknowns. There was some utilities that weren't there that were supposed to be.
So overall quality for the site is very well, very good, and new subs.
Basically, educating the out-of-state subs, it took a little bit of knowledge in regards to Texas insurance regulations, as well as their lien laws up there. So consistent communication with our subs, open communication at any time, and basically being able to talk with them about Louisiana Lemoine policy versus Texas insurance laws. It allowed us to overcome the challenges of contract executions, insurances being in compliance, lien release forms, and payables, so that we were able to basically work safely and be productive, as well as keeping a positive attitude on both Lemoine and subcontract.
So on the schedule aspect of it, we have one clarification on the camper roll date is when Joshua hooked up and rolled out. It was actually the 7th, and I do recall now because you were there a week early before we could actually get the notice to proceed. But we overcame that hiccup. Just to put it in perspective, so January 14th is notice to proceed, and August 31st is the substantial completion. To get there on a pre-engineered metal building project, we as in Josh mostly dealt with erector performance.
Early building delivery.
Correct. The building got there and in a hurry. We early released it. So he overcame that, and that's, you heard Greg talk about, in an occupied space with traffic successfully. Took a tremendous amount of scheduling and meeting and collaboration, and we certainly commend him for that. The other thing is, it was a phased delivery. They wanted to be able to eat first, work in offices and their shop second. So we strategized around that and gave them separate deliveries. They also added $961,000 to the scope while we were there, adding a second floor of the office building.
Before Andrew goes to the next slide, you'll see what their previous conditions were. That's a picture of their galley. That's actually a full kitchen behind that wall right there. Before they had that, they were cooking out of 2 sea cans, feeding close to 75 to 100 people 3 meals a day in probably a space less than the size of this right here.
Absolutely.
So you had a couple Rubbermaid tables set up in a little sea can with some chairs pushed in it and everybody bumping into each other. So before they had that, yeah.
So just real quick, and we'll put some of the things that these buildings had in them to that effect that really left the customer a lot better than we found them. They weren't even on the site in 11. They occupied in this capacity in June of 11. And by 13, when they bring us in, we leave them with the galley is on the right, the office is in the middle, and the shop is to the left of those three buildings. Notice they're occupied to the right and to the left, and there's only one frontage road. So our shot at April with the galley and office shop is last. May, June, July. So this is a shop inside of the shop that we.
That's a shot, it's a big ass fan up there. It's I think a 15-foot diameter fan. It's pretty quiet too.
All of these photos, by the way, are courtesy of Mr. Chase Guidry.
Get your iPhone
We caught some pretty significant flack by the oil field hands that were operating around this.
Yeah, Alton or Lynn, when they started trailing this color on, it kind of caught my eye to be weird. You know, it was almost like I was in Florida. You know how you have that mint green, the peach?
He called me that
And you get all these oil guys, you know, calling me, asking me, tell me that's not the color. tell me we're getting some kind of camo going up or something. I said, no sir, it's the color the architect picked for you.
Keep the Jumanji size mosquitoes out.
The screen in front porch on the front of that guy.
So you had said, as a takeaway, a lesson learned the other day.
A lesson learned, I guess, the biggest thing was that I was going to a place I didn't know, I had no clue about. I didn't know the area, I didn't know the people. You know how we use EP Bro, Bernhard, all those guys, same day in, day out, job to job. Well, we're going into an area that we didn't know the subs, we didn't know how they were going to perform. I didn't know where any lumber stores were. I didn't know anything. I mean, it was treasures. And, you know, we're in the middle of nowhere. I mean, 10, 15 miles closest to the nearest little convenience store. There was some stores out there, but I guess the biggest thing is that whether you're going into a place that you're unfamiliar with or even somewhat know, make a site visit. You know, take the time, a couple of days to go down there. This was 500 miles away. I know, you know, we were in estimating phase and trying to get all these bids in and these tab sheets put together, but take a couple of days, go down there, just see what you're up against, especially in an area that you had no clue where you're going into. And that would probably have made a world of difference. I would have been able to do a little bit more planning. And also to see how things organize it. You know, I didn't know that there was going to be traffic coming in and out 24/7. These guys, they run 24/7. They're producing $2.3 million a day. And if they stop, you know, but they don't. And it helps with deliveries. You know, we would have a steel truck come in. You know, six loads of steel would come in for a building, just about. And it shouldn't take a couple hours to unload it, but whenever you have to stop, because the only road you have is occupied by these guys, and you can't stop them from coming in and out, and the lunch rush is the worst time of the day, but you know, it took all day to unload 6 trucks with a forklift when we get a delivery, and the metal building sub was pissed off. You know, there was so much stuff that they had to deal with that they weren't used to, but we overcame it, and you know, it turned out pretty good. I think everyone was pretty happy with the product you got.
Absolutely. All right. Well, we'll roll into the to the deep water. Has anybody got any questions about the Eagle Ford? We'll certainly be around. Let me give you just a real quick synopsis on the deep water site or the deep water project. Involved the same client. It was a callback based off of the Eagle Ford's ability to execute. PHP had just endeavored to enter into the deep water oil and gas market, whereas they were mainly land-based. They bought several rigs in the Gulf of Mexico. They bought $250 million worth of BP oil and gas equipment, blowout preventers, I mean a laundry list of items. So he calls and says in December, I need a place to put $250 million worth of stuff by May. And we kind of panicked a little bit. and said we don't think that's possible. But we came up with a plan. We looked at several things. Temporary staging. I think Fitchy had come up with a couple of spots down in Jeanerette. And we came up with this phase 1 versus phase 2, and you'll see it as we deliver the presentation. Phase 1 is the gray limestone lot. It's 5 acres. You'll see that is the BP equipment as we're driving pods. Just some quick facts, 25-acre site in Leda Park in Broussard. Started March 8th, complete at October 1. 277,000 square feet of paving. We soil cemented the entire countryside so we could continue to work. The building that you'll see, the big warehouse, it converts to right at 3 acres under roof. And it's got a climate controlled area that's pretty neat. We'll show you that. So, Barrett. Oh, Mitchell.
All right, so y'all see we had a lot to design and didn't have much time. We knew that it was going to take the right people on board. The architect we went to was Alton Ozan. Him and Lynn Guidry, the same team that we had at Panna Maria, helped us out. Internally, it was a collaborative effort between Matrix Operations and Estimating. We negotiated with a lot of the critical subs, obviously the metal building, deep foundation guys. And also the owner was a big help. He would answer questions quickly so that it didn't impact our schedule. And some of the ways that we handled the pre-con moving quickly. It was a fast track design. We got SDs and schematic drawings in January. We got construction documents in February, so we totally skipped the design development phase. And to keep up with that pace, we got everybody on board, Operations Matrix, from the beginning in all the meetings, helping us with pricing. And once we did get CDs, we would huddle up every morning, review our action item list with critical and near critical items, and a lot of the critical items had to be solved that day. Fitch was on site putting pipe in the ground and elevations weren't matching up. We had to get answers for them. We ended up early releasing a third of the scopes, and because the owner needed an all-in number to go get his funding, we gave him a list of 24 alternates that he could pick and choose from while we got the construction started, so that it didn't slow us down. And at the end, I think everybody up here will agree we had a good budget and some contingency. And I think Barrett's going to talk about some of the challenges that we had in the pre-con.
Yeah, this obviously was a very unique project. I typically do not go to OAC meetings, or at least maybe hit the first 1 or 2. I pretty much went to every OAC meeting on this project and presented pricing every other meeting. So it was the whole time going. But like Mitchell said, the owner would make decisions, and it helped us out to get this thing going.
He's known as the spreadsheet guy. Every time he came, he brought numbers and knew the payment.
The owner finally controlled rep that they had. I loved it because I just bring a new crazy spreadsheet that showed something and said, oh, that's great. Yeah. Anyway, here's some of the issues that we had. Metal building directors at the time and now are very busy on other projects, and this building was a little bit very unique because, like you saw, there's a 75-foot at the peak of the roof and a 46-foot eave height. So you had a 3-on-12 pitch, and we were using a purling glide system. So the erection numbers were coming in double what they should be, and we thought that was ridiculous. So Greg Eckler knew some erectors out of state that he had worked with, and so we got some prices from those guys. And one of them, North Michigan, came in line with what we thought it was. And but come to find out, maybe those other erectors' prices were right. But he had issues with the roof. With this purling glide, you got a machine that rolls the insulation on there. Well, because of the pitch, it was binding up this machine, so it slowed down the whole erection process. So we ended up, luckily I had contingency on the erections, and we never worked with the guy before, so anyway, we did that and we supplemented the guy, and it worked out, but it was a struggle. Here, the owner wanted us, like Mitchell said, all in numbers. So we were putting the racks in there, we're putting IT, anything that typically would have been an owner item, even furniture, we had in our budget to do. So, we had to design the racks. I think Sexton will speak on the rack issue next that we had about fire sprinkling. The owner IT requirements. Huh? Anyway, the IT requirements were pretty crazy, especially when they got bought out by Freeport-McMoran, which actually kind of helped because they brought their guys in from, Freeport guys in from New Orleans, who came in and kind of finally gave us some direction on what they needed. And they also had a huge AV package, with the IT. It was like $350,000, video conferencing, the SCADA system, all the stuff that we had to tie back into their system. And then during all this, they decided that they wanted to do a living quarters, so we had to price that, which would be on the site. Yeah, I think I priced it. Mitchell and I priced about 10 different versions of that. We're still waiting, but we think that probably will be a go. There's obviously some addendum pricing that we had to do. Weekly, I talked about weekly meetings, but we also put the pre-con in there, and pretty much all of Mitchell and myself time was paid for that whole, it's about $70,000 of pre-construction. So that was great. We got paid for it, and it didn't hit our G&A. And anyway,
good deal. All right, so some of the things that some of the things that we dealt with that Barrett said was the 3-on-12 pitch put us in a design situation where NFPA standards that we build by all day, every day.
I'm going to hit on a couple safety issues we had out there. One was obviously that steel's not supposed to be like that. The guys who are erecting, they're erecting the columns and rafters. We had a big wind incident. So these columns, just to give you an idea, is 45 feet to 70 feet in the air. And those things act like a sail when there's a 20-mile-an-hour wind gust. Click the picture. You have So this is the lift that was toppled over. We lost 2 columns, a couple purlins, and a rafter in this deal. Click it again. We got together with Wes before. We had one lift holding the skinny part of the column, which when the wind blew, it acted like a sail and tilted the lift over. So Wes came up with getting 2 lifts on both sides of that to hold it up, so it would be more sturdy during the wind incident. Next one, we had talked about big ass fans earlier. We had a couple big ass cranes, which there was a 20 and a 60-ton crane in the warehouse. The 60-ton crane was probably from the size of this room, expanded this room, and was probably as high as the fur down of this. So you think the guys that are going to be putting a crane that size up would know how to unload the track for the crane, but apparently not. This next slide, if you look on the left, that's the 5,000 square foot room. Ceiling height's about 38 feet, I believe. You have 8 or 9 man lifts in there at a time, so it gives you how congested it was. And you've got your sprinkler subcontractor putting the sprinkler pipe all the way up on the roof. And ranging from 45 to 70 feet in the air again. So safe work practices say that you can't put materials on the guardrail of a man lift. You can't lift material on that type of lift. Well, that's the only thing that can reach that high. So we had to get with Wes and our Excel fire protection with our sprinkler guy. He came up with a rig where you turn the sprinkler pipe upside down and sit the holes into the little rig we see on the right, so that you would safely be able to bring the materials up that high. This sort of gives you an idea of how fast we had to move on the project. Each photo you'll see is taken 2 weeks apart. You go from no slab to 1 poured, half one,
By the way, I don't think we emphasized enough, this was matrix civil, that's earthwork and concrete, and gentleman in the back of the room was a major part of that. Chris Cummings, some of the best paving that we've done in quite a few years.
This is a 7-day job from day one, 7 days a week. They have, like Pam Maria said, they had issues with their metal building erector. We have the same issues with ours. It's finding somebody to erect something this big that fast. So called every single local guy, probably about 2 or 3 times. They said no way, or probably we're double what our budget was. Greg Eckler was the superintendent, came from us from Kansas. So he knew a bunch of different erectors all around the country, and they all recommended this guy from North Michigan. He came down, he was in budget, he said he can erect the whole building, have all the red iron up in 9 weeks, and put all the sheathing, the roof, the wall sheathings, all in 9 weeks. Didn't happen, it wound up 16 weeks. But we had to adjust the schedule. The building was so big, we got all the red iron up and half the building sheathed. So we were able to progress all the MEP, we had 14 big ass fans, a bunch of lights, cranes, all kinds of stuff. We were able to progress that stuff and get the erector out of the critical path since we could work in the path that was already finished. What was holding them up was the pitch of the roof. Like we said, it was so steep. The building was so high. Their manpower, they kept losing guys. They're from North Michigan. It was too hot down here, used to cold weather. In the mornings, the roof was steep again. The humidity, they'd be slipping on the roof, so they had to shut down the crews in the morning.
What did they say? They said, why would y'all live here?
And not to mention, multiple days he would walk in and say, at 60 feet, there is a swarm of gnats that go into my nose and my throat, and it is 130 degrees on top of the tent. And we're from North Michigan, and we don't appreciate this weather.
So we get about 4 or 5 weeks in our 9-week schedule, maybe even a little less than that. We're having problems getting this huge building up. So we start calling local guys again. I called every single erector in the state of Louisiana probably 2 or 3 times. Called people around the country, didn't work. I called Leon to see if he knew people. I knew he came from a different country, or country.
Civil War still around.
So I had to think outside the box. We're doing another building at the same time, the River Ranch. Who was our erector on that job was from Alabama, which was a structural steel job. So I called him just to see if he knew any metal building guys. He gave me a list of them from Alabama. First guy I called, he was able to send probably 15 guys down to help us out, progress that. And we had another crew that helped us finish the little 6,000 square foot office building. So one of them not there because
All right, some of the lessons learned on this job, both, not just operationally or execution-wise, we kind of learned in the design build aspect that once you go to this roof pitch of 3 on 12, it takes you out of any guidelines that NFPA sets for you. So we leaned on our engineer at ADG, and he came back with this factory mutual guideline. That would require in-rack sprinkler heads in every cube space. Which saw the photo, there's hundreds and hundreds and hundreds, to a cost the tune of $250,000. And this owner, being in the energy business, just said, I don't care what you have to do, you go fix it. So we came up with an approach, got with the architect, and through the use of an engineering judgment and an architect that was a team player, drafted a letter, listed some specific facts, and we're able to get that approved and I guess waived, so to speak. So it saved the owner $250,000. It saved our schedule, which was about to be a complete train wreck, and going to just a tailspin of redesign and execution. So we thought, felt like that was kind of a highlight of the innovation that we were able to do that one. So at the end of the project, we feel like we were successful in leaving the owner with a high quality product, which he was ecstatic. It was a profitable outcome, and we are just about to crank off another project for them at their office, a 12,000 square foot TI renovation. And like they had said, we have a building ready to go into production, waiting on the approval from corporate, from the FMOG merger.
You're probably wondering why there's an eye of the tiger on that building. Some of the owners, like the big owners for PXP, were flying over in a helicopter going to or returning to the airport from the Gulf. Saw the huge building, they're like, man, it'd be pretty cool if we could put the eye of the tiger on that thing. So called up Erica, got her to superimpose it, and by the end of the meeting, we had a picture of the eye of the tiger on the roof to give to the owner. And we gave him at the end of the project, we gave him a picture of that with the eye of the tiger as a gift from us. So they loved it. Thank you. You have any comments?
All right, well.
Hey, Andrew.
Yes, sir.
Was it an owner requirement for the roof pitch? Real quick?
No, the roof pitch was a 1-on-12, and through design, not realizing what impact it would have on the overall project, it was a architectural, let's make them match, and let's make sure, because at that time we didn't know that the depth of the crane, we knew it was going to be deep, but we didn't know how deep. So we hedged our bet and raised it to give you some depth, and the big ass fans and the lights, all that had to get coordinated. So don't do it. Don't do 3-on-12.
We should have raised the whole building.
2-on-12 is the answer.
Not just the peak.
All right.
All right, guys, congratulations. We got some awards for you guys here, some little, I think we should take a picture of this group right here. Come on, go.
Yeah.
They got names on them? Yeah. Put those names on.
I got here.
I just can't read them.
It's for Robin. I'll hold equity.
Okay, all right. There.
I'm taller.
Sorry, can't do
Thank y'all, congratulations. All right, so next we'll kind of get into presenting some, where are we in certain parts of the business, estimating backlog, a little summary of financials, and talk to you about our strategic plan update and where we stand on the new incentive plan. So next up is Van and Barrett to give us a report on where we stand with estimating.
We're going to let Barrett do it.
Last year.
Barrett put it all together.
All right, this is, I'm going to show you by quarter, and then we'll show a recap of last year, how we did, and just the highlighted yellow ones are the projects that we actually picked up. Can you hear me? All right, is that better? Yeah. So anyway, no, the first quarter was New Orleans East Hospital. I say it's a hard bid. It was kind of a hybrid. I don't know where to put it. It was more of a RFP. You got scored and all that. But at the end of the day, we got it. That was $67 million. Negotiated. We had Park Place Surgical, $25 million. Tulane Zimple House, $22 million. PHP Deepwater, $18.7. For a total of $133 million for the first quarter. Second quarter, we had no hard bids that went out negotiated. We got Elk Place Apartments at 17.8, GE Oil and Gas, the CDs at 17.3, and there was some additional postal board that we got for $500,000, and then Boomtown Casino at 14.1 million. Then invited bidders was this little LGMC MRI replacement, about 500 grand. So the total second quarter was only 50 million that we picked up. I'm sorry, wrong way. Got it? All right, I'll point it in. So third quarter, we had Lake Charles Charter Edition, CDs edition. It was $1 million, and then we had to do some temp trailers at 2 different locations in Lake Charles. So it was $98,289. Invited bidders, we picked up the Whitney Bank build out on the first floor of Community Tower 5, $1.8 million. So that quarter, not that great, $3.2 million work picked up. Fourth quarter. Had a lot of action going on in the fourth quarter. Hard bid, we just bid one, did not get it. We are construction manager on that project, the Southwest Charter Academy. Negotiated UL parking garage, $17.4 million. FMOG Park Tower, first floor, little door replacement, $42,000. And then we had the OLL headway and elevated tower, which is in addition to the Park Place job for 1.6. And then invited bidders, we Citation Lafayette picked that up, 136. IBM, big project, 55 million, for a total of 74 million, 74.6 million. So next slide is our recap. I'm just going to go through the second to last column, or the last 2 columns, since we already went through the quarters. But you go look at hard bid, we only bid 2, and it was 75 million that we bid, 67 we picked up. So we were 1 for 2, so that's 50%. But if you look at the dollar ratio, that was 88% that we picked up. Negotiated, we bid 276 million, and we picked up 136 million. That was out of 33 jobs, we picked up 13 of them. So that was 39.39% for 13 for 33, and then another 49% if you do it by dollar value. The invited bidders, we bid 184 million, picked up 55 million, and I was 11 jobs that we picked up 4. So that was 36%. So if you look at the totals, now you see the 537 million, that is just single project. That doesn't take in all the estimates that we might have to do for negotiated, like SD, DD, CD. So that's, if you look at all the estimates that we did last year, it was $795 million of estimates. So anyway, of that, we picked up for a total of $261 million worth of work last year. And that was only 18 jobs out of 46 that we picked up. So 39% was our hit ratio, and then 48. So that was last year. Currently, and what we're looking at in the future, here's what we got. Recently awarded projects, we have UL Parking Garage, 18 million. UL Athletics, 21 million. We have the FMOG Park Tower, 4-floor renovation, 850,000. And then this Park Place Deltac, which is a build out at Park Place, 2.2 million. Picking projects in pre-construction, concentric pipe additions, that's the design build, and actually not in Lafayette, it's in New Iberia, 2.3 million. Bristow Galliano additions, it's 9.5 million. Schilling addition, 5.2. Landmark Best Western, we're currently pricing that up. The DD set, it's 15 million. And then LGSH, first and second floor ambulatory build out, another 3.3 million. Here's some of the projects that we're targeting for the year. They can be coming out in the next 6 to 12 months. It's CAD control services, the new facility, design build, 15 million. FMOG living quarters for 3.5 million. Our Savior's Church additions, 7 million. Ambassador Retail Center for 18 million. We have the River Ranch office building, another office building, River Ranch, for 10 million. That should be coming out. Baton Rouge office building, 12.2 million. And then Onyx building in Baton Rouge, retail and apartments, is 8 million. The Water Institute that Lenny talked about, which I'm thinking, I had 300 million, is that right? Huge project, downtown Baton Rouge. Greater New Orleans Foundation in New Orleans is 8 million. Bastion Community, 15 million in New Orleans. There's the 1031 Canal Mixed Use Development, which is similar to an IBM job. In New Orleans, that's about 84.5 million. Chevron Office and Parking Garage Tower in Covington, 70 million. And some healthcare, Jennings American Legion Hospital for 6 million. We've got Our Lady of the Lake Children's Hospital development in Baton Rouge, $200 million, probably invited bidders. And MUSC Phase 2 Children's Hospital in Charleston, South Carolina, $200 million. So that's all I got. Anybody got any questions?
Good work.
Good job, Barry.
What was the average fee collected for all the jobs we got last year?
Average fee?
Bid fee.
I need to go back. I didn't run those numbers, but it was probably 4.5%, 5%.
That's what. Yeah.
I ran every other number with that.
I wasn't planning on bringing up this subject, but after listening to Mike put on his production about creativity and innovation, it got me thinking about some of the work that we do in accounting for the organization and the need to be creative and innovative with the information that we collect from the field and from other parts of the business on a daily basis. And several years ago, we talked about the need to leverage that information as much as possible. And the first slide that we have, you can go ahead, Christine. It wasn't that long ago where preparing for this meeting would have taken hours of collecting data, phone calls, beating down doors, trying to get information. And as recent as this morning, racing into the office, I was pulling the information together because of the power behind the work that we've done in developing our Business Intelligence Center. So although it's just one slide, it's an incredible amount of information that's coming in from the background. So you don't have to be in the field to be creative or innovative. You can do it in every job that you hold in the organization. So I encourage you to keep that spirit and think about what you do for the organization and speak up if you have an idea to do something that may be creative or innovative. So this is a snapshot of our backlog as we stand at the beginning of the year, I should say. 2013, we ended with right at $193 million in backlog, and today we stand at the end of February with $185 million in work program going on. And you can see it's divided into three components. The blue line at the bottom is our WIP. That's work in progress. That's contracts that we have ongoing right now. The red line is probable jobs plus that WIP. And the line at the top, the green line, is WIP, probable, and potential jobs. So in that potential area, you just heard Barrett list some of the jobs that we were tracking. That's what you'll see in that area. So as we make our way to the mid part of the year, around in June, you can see there's a spike up there. Some of those jobs that we're tracking, that's what's going to take us towards our planned goal towards the end of the year. And you'll see some of that in a little bit as we begin to show you part of the strategic plan. So as we make our way through the end of the year, you can see some targets of how we'll end with backlog, potentially in the 150 to 170 million range, which is not far off from where we ended in the year before. And historically, we're a little bit lower than normal, but it's on track there. So the next slide here, if you were here present at the mid-year meeting in July, you may have recognized some of these numbers. In particular, we showed you where we were actual at the end of 2012, bringing in the year right at 160 million, with a net margin of right at $2.2 million. And then we told you a little bit about the 2013 strategic plan goal. The goal was 298 million, and we were going to have a net margin of about 7.3 million. Well, quite a bit has changed since then. We did a mid-year July update on our plan goal at 320 million, and we were looking at a projected margin of 8.5 million. We did have about half a dozen jobs that, as it turned out, ended up being some issues for us, some problems with significant fee fade, which led to the end of the year at $284 million in gross revenues, with a gross margin of $8.6 million, which represents about 4.5% on average, significantly down from what our planned goal was. Obviously a big disappointment. However, I believe everybody involved with those 6 projects has many lessons learned and much to take forward. The good news at the end of the day is we made a little bit of money after all that was done, and it could have been, opposite of that, but there was a bottom line after taxes, after operating income of right at $900,000. And that is an update on financials. Next, we have strategic plan update.
So, any questions? I mean, that's obviously a tremendous shift from what we told you guys we expected to do, hoped to do, should have done. But, anybody in here that's a surprise to who had not heard it from your manager, if you got any questions or want any further explanation, please feel free to ask. All right, so strategic plan, I'm going to put this little thing on and probably have to get closer to some of that because I tried to print a sheet and it was 8.5 by 11. I don't have my glasses. So what we did this year was brought a group together, and in light of what you saw with some of those numbers and in light of what we were seeing, in the market, kind of asked ourselves, first to spend time on the core values and to make sense of that and to see if they were still relevant and were we living them, and if we weren't living them, did we need to clarify them in a different way, or did we need to add anything that we were missing? Teresa, I think, were you going to kind of talk about what those changes were? Or do you? Okay.
So we went through the values exercise, and I'm just going to go through all of the values just to reiterate. There were a couple of changes to actually all of the values, some of which were only nature of their placement in the list, because we thought by orienting some of the values together or near the top was pretty significant. So I'll go through them and read them kind of quickly. Safety, we changed a little bit of that definition to include the word execute. So it reads now, plan and execute Lemoine injury-free environments on every project, every day. It is still noted as our #1 value. Relationships, the definition changed to commitment to building lasting relationships that will have a positive influence on our community, industry, and all project stakeholders. The next value is a brand new value titled employee development, and the definition for us means focus on education, training, and mentoring to hone skills, increase job satisfaction, and provide advancement opportunities. And we put relationships and employee development together towards the top. Those were the most significant changes, I think, that we made that I think are going to impact most of us in this room. Work ethic, do the right thing the right way at the right time. That's an old value that kind of made its way back to the list from a couple years ago. Integrity, always uphold the highest moral principles and professional standards. A new value and kind of an ode to that today was Mike Harden's presentation of continuous improvement. And we define continuous improvement as increased efficiency and reduced risk through innovation, collaboration, and process controls. Next is attention to detail, achieve precision the first time, so just a slight tweak to that value. And then finally, ecstatic customers, bring the best of ourselves to exceed all customer satisfaction. That was listed last because it's our thought that if you do all the first handful of values, you will come out with ecstatic customers.
All right. Thank you, Teresa. So the next thing we looked at was, the foundation for success. Everybody, felt that was still relevant and that they're understood that, obviously from the award you saw today, people are still living and focusing on those. Then, the way this sheet works, for those of you that have seen it in the past, is that, you move, the left side is forever, right? Your values are forever. Our foundations, we believe, are forever. We may alter some of that from time to time, but substantially, they should remain the same. So the purpose of the organization and the major actions that we need to take to live that purpose, we believe are relevant. Experts say they should be relevant for, 10 to 30 years. So the purpose is still the same, to achieve excellence in construction while enhancing the lives of all involved. The actions to live them, we felt like, are still basically the same, to communicate those values to the vendors that work for us and to, external organizations. Make people understand when we do business with people what our values are and that we're prepared to live them, and ask them to hold us accountable for those. I think that's a place, frankly, that all of us could spend more time talking to some of our new vendors, new subcontractors about, and even people who have worked for us for a long time. I mean, some guys don't realize your commitment to these. But I think at the beginning of projects and from time to time, when you're with these guys, we need to let them know that. We felt, and always have, we need to incorporate those values into recruiting, selecting, retention of people. And I think if people don't see eye to eye with our values, they have no chance of being successful here. So we need to really spend time, and in the who process that we use for recruiting, those of you that have been recruited recently in it know that that's one of the early questions we ask people. And then institute a daily reminder, accountability, and reward people for living them. You saw a group, receive a little award today for living those foundations. So the BHAG underwent a pretty radical restatement, and we changed it to be less focused on revenue and numbers and a little more about culture and people. So established by 2017, we will want to have established a culture of excellence best known for developing people and relationships, exceeding customer expectations, and achieving annual growth of 10% at a 6.5% gross profit. So the old BHAG had a big number out there that by, 2020 or whatever it was, we were going to get to $500 million in revenue. We felt like we should make the BHAG more about developing the organization and developing people and relationships. And then, if we do that, then we'll grow at a reasonable rate and grow under control. Frankly, some of what happened last year, and I'm certainly embarrassed about it as a leader, is that we did grow too fast, and we did not pay enough attention to process on the front end of some big jobs that went to construction in 2012, and that were some of them in pre-construction in late 11. So we felt like we needed to soften the revenue goal and get back to being focused more on process and people. The brand promise is still the same. It's relevant now. I think it will always be relevant. It comes down to the right people. The right people are going to find the right solutions. The right people are going to develop peace of mind for our customers. The example we just saw what that team did for PXP was exactly that. And they went and found a solution out in San Antonio or wherever the hell that godforsaken place was. And then were asked to come back, and in our backyard, had the opportunity to do a great project. It's very profitable, and a lot of fun for those guys to be involved in. So the way this plan works is then you just start moving from left to right. It says, okay, if this is what you want to do in the next 10 to 30 years, then what do we have to do over the next 3 years to achieve that? And then the next column beyond that is going to be what do we have to do this year to hit the 3-year goal? And the next column past that will be what do we have to do next quarter to hit the 1-year goal? So, we believe that by 17, the company can be in the back in a $300+ million range. But what we want to focus on is that we're going to focus on high profit work. And it's going to take discipline. It's going to take great business development. Because if people don't get way out in front and have a lot of opportunities to choose from, they stuck with making the only job in front of them work in terms of numbers. And if you don't have them stacked 10 deep, then if the one or two happen to be for tough owners who are fee focused, then you wind up with limited. Every organization in the world has a limited amount of people resources. We can only build so much work. So it comes down to, oftentimes, you get stuck with a big cheap job because you didn't have other alternatives and you didn't create other alternatives. So, these VPs are going to be challenged with really driving and getting out and developing relationships and developing opportunities that can generate higher margin potential. Because it all comes from the front end. 80% of what we make or lose in construction generally happens before we break ground. What gets screwed up in the field from time to time is usually a marginal amount of money. But we control most of the risk and we create most of the opportunities before we ever put a shovel in the ground. So, we want to have a higher focus on that 6.5% number. We believe that the company can run from a G&A standpoint in the 2.5% range. And that, we have a great pre-bonus operating income. We're targeting bonuses, moving forward at somewhere around 22% of our net operating profit. So if we were able to hit 12, pre-tax, then that'd be a target bonus pool of around $3 million, operating income of almost $10 million. After taxes, we make $5.4 million. So that's really the scenario that we should have to justify the risk that we take. Quite different scenario than you saw last year on whatever Don just showed you, 260 or 80 million, whatever that number was, and a very minuscule return. I mean, some people call it fee fade. We really had cost overruns and just, unfortunately, some bad decisions. We felt like the sandbox that we tightened it up a little bit, right now primarily in Louisiana, but certainly over the next 3 years, we've got to get active up and down the I-10 corridor. We got to be active there consistently. I mean, Louisiana's the place to be right now. It is red hot, but history tells us it doesn't stay red hot. These LNG projects are going to drive a tremendous amount of work to us over the next 3 to 4 years, but what's next, we don't know. State government doesn't get its act together, doesn't get recurring revenues in check. We really don't know how long Louisiana will stay this strong. So we got, ultimately, some kind of way, somebody in this organization has got to go to Texas and plant a flag, and we got to begin building an organization there. I mean, when you look at the long-term predictions for Texas, it's awesome. I know we got Stefan here who just came from there. But, I mean, it's a state with a tremendous future. It's not for everybody, but it is the land of long-term opportunities as best we can all tell. So, the segments, been a couple changes there. Still commercial, still healthcare, still civil. But we believe that this industrial opportunity is going to create some business lines where we can be successful. We can't go in and do what Performance Contractors does or what Turner does and go do big plant work mechanically. But we believe on the civil side and on the building support side from control buildings and those type things, that there's going to be some opportunity, and that's a place that Seth wants to really begin to focus. We talked to some of the guys in New Orleans about that. Obviously, Dennis is still focused on municipal. That's a very tough market. If the margins profiles don't change there, we're not going to spend a lot more time beating our heads against the wall. We'll probably ask Dennis to jump in and help Seth and that group industrially. And then, drywall and tenant improvement work, we believe that's a place that we can generate some profits. I know there are mixed opinions in the organization about Matrix. I think a lot of it has to do with communication. A lot of it has to do with how we get them into a project. But, you know, I think it's still a valid business, but, you know, we're going to be talking about, you know, strategically, how does that go to market? So, you know, the key thrust over the next 3 years, you know, the first place is talking about, again, you know, the new value of employee development. You know, we will have structured education, training, and mentoring in order to provide advancement opportunities and have employee job satisfaction. You know, and so that ties right back into the new value. It's a place we must focus. I mean, we get so caught up sometimes in the details of doing work that as leaders, we don't spend enough time mentoring people and developing people and understanding what individuals need. And that's a place that we know we must improve. I think we do a great job of selecting talent, but we don't do a great job of developing talent. So that's a place that we're going to ask everybody in this room to get involved, because, you know, we need to do it for you, but we need you to do it for the guy on the left and the right side of you as well. You know, we'll have a talent management system that identifies gaps by position to source and select the human resources needed to meet revenue goals and align opportunities with capacity. That's the hardest thing to do in the construction business. We probably got, I mean, you saw the list Barrett had, $800 million of work sitting out there. Doesn't include the New Orleans airport, which is another $800 million. I mean, there's probably reasonably right now a couple of $1 billion of work floating around in our Lemoine hemisphere. And, you know, it never aligns with people finishing a job just right. You never have the right resources, you know, usually aligned with the opportunity that comes along. So it's the hardest thing we do. And we just got to get better at predicting, you know, and when jobs start getting behind schedule, then you really get a train wreck. Because you, in fact, if you had aligned it right, and you planned on a group starting a new job in June, and they start running 2 or 3 weeks behind schedule, you really got a mess. Because then you can't go start the job in June the right way. So we got some people out of position now. We got to get them back in position, the Greg Landrys, the Jerry Smiths, and some of the people that we rely on to deal with gaps where we may need to go start a job, who can jump in and help when a team isn't necessarily available already. So that's a place we know we got to do a better job. You know, we're going to talk to you in the coming months, but you know, we need to develop, document, and consistently utilize Lemoine's pre-bid and pre-construction process improvement ladder for project delivery. We'll show you what that looks like. Most of you haven't seen it. It's something that Leon helped us to document after he got here. We got to provide the details behind it, but it is a proven process. Actually, in 2003, I had developed almost the same thing we're looking at now. Leon did a great job of reordering it and put some new pieces in it that are essential. But if we follow that process, it's almost a guarantee that you're going to have success. I mean, this business in large part is about what you do on the front end. And what you do on the front end is governed by process. And so, you know, for people that don't like that, who can't live with that, who can't deal with that, you got to innovate a better way. But you can't not do it. And so, you know, if you want to innovate a better way, we're all about that. But there's certain things that got to be done on the front end of these projects, or it doesn't matter how well the team in the field then innovates. You know, because I mean, the PXP group did a great job innovating. They wound up with a problem in the field, and they said, let's go supplement this guy and let's deal with it. And so that was a field innovation, you know, but the front end of that job was well done, and they had the funds to go innovate with. And And that's what gave them the opportunity to respond. So the last thing we said we'd do is have a well-defined business development and market strategy in place and working. So over the next 3 years, we want to have done those things. The numbers we're going to watch are actual cost versus estimated cost. That number went down for one reason, cost overruns. Improved employee satisfaction ratings, and we want 85% of our backlog from negotiated work, 70% from current owners, and always having at least 30% coming from new owners, because a lot of the owners we have worked for, like Our Lady of Lourdes Hospital, you know, they're not going to go build another $150 million hospital. We've almost completely renovated the Lafayette General Campus. So we got to go find that next hospital owner. And every year we got to be finding at least 30 or 40% of our people from that. So the rest of it, I won't go through details with you. This says that this year we think we can do roughly $60 million. You know, we think we can make pre-bonus $4.3 million. The target bonus pool of that would be roughly $1 million. And, you know, you can see what taxes do to us. So, you know, that's really not a good scenario. But in the backlog of work that we start this year with, we think the most we can get out of it is about a 4.5% fee. So, you know, I mean, you start with $300 million of risk, and you're going to go make $2 million. I mean, that is, take a dollar bill and start cutting it up, and let 298 of the pieces of the dollar bill go away and be stuck with 2 little pieces left. That's what we're talking about. That's what over the next 3 years we gotta improve on. And I know we will, and I know we can. So, you know, this year, here are the same, and here's what we want to do about each of those 4 initiatives. And it's just the steps we'll take. And then this quarter, here are the same steps we need to take to get these things done this year. The critical numbers will be the right backlog procurement of $275 million in 2014, and that's not 2% work, that's not 3% work, that's good work with good money in it and good margins. You know, we want to, this affects everybody in this room. We want to get to where we have everybody, every salaried employee in this organization, and ultimately craft people, but I don't think that's reasonable this year, not craft people, but every salaried person in this organization having 4 hours of training per month. 2 on technical and 2 on safety. Leon and Greg and Wes are working on some tools. The safety piece is going to be a snap. Some of the young guys in the LEAP program, I think, are already doing it, but this click safety program is pretty slick. I got on, I'm done, I'm getting old. I tell you, I can do it. So, you know, you guys will eat it up, but you can do it at your leisure. You can do it when you got the time. You can get in, you can, you know, get out, come back to it at a later date. So I think it's a way for you to get your safety work done in a flexible training method. The technical training, we're going to try to build it around the project success ladder, and we're starting to go to work on that now. The third number is the most important number. 0 fee fade this year. I mean, we just, you know, we can't have happen what happened. And again, at a high level, the leadership of the organization is mostly responsible for what happened, not the people in the field executing the work. So, you know, we getting back to process, we getting back to collaboration, we getting back to a structure of approvals around go, no-go decisions. We're doing real risk analysis before we decide to go start a project. And, you know, people are having to, nobody makes a decision to go self-perform work in a vacuum. And certainly any joint venture work we do, you know, we're not going to let anybody else estimate work that we don't also estimate. So again, just process, just kind of, you know, attention to detail is what we believe will avoid that. So those are the critical numbers for the year. You see related critical numbers for the quarter, and again, the rocks and the accountability on the HR side and training side is Leon, myself, and Teresa. You know, the first one is develop the curriculum and start to roll it out in April. I mean, that's going to be hard to do. That's a lot of work. The second one is to fill all open positions. That's the VP's responsibility. We've had some people be a little soft and a little slow on getting out there and hustling and looking at good candidates. We're going to post everything we know that needs to be posted in the next week or so. Some of the people in this room probably know of candidates who might be coming from other organizations or may want to move to Louisiana. Give us whatever help you can there. Every job, is going to go through a process during pre-construction. No number is going to leave this organization that Van or Barrett or both didn't have a say in and didn't approve of. So, you got to control it on the front end. And then we want to complete 2 of 5 business plans for those strategic sectors that you saw off to your left. So, that's the plan. Some refinements, nothing radical. I think we should, all take the time over the coming weeks. We're going to get you an email copy of this week, and then we're going to try to get some prints done for you. But take the time to look at it. Let us know what you think. Let us know if you think we should have done something differently. Hopefully it's something that we as leaders do a better job of executing as we go forward. Any questions? All right. So here's the process improvement ladder. Some of the things Leon did was kind of organize the thing on the left side, pre-bid, pre-construction, and then at the top side is execution and then closeout. And then on the right side, he kind of, identified some of the other parts that match a business process diagram that he's done. But if you go back to the bottom, real quick, it's a best practices initiative, and this is the place probably that, we might have made a couple of, just didn't really think through some of the go-no decisions. Certainly didn't have a collaborative risk management assessment on some of these projects when we go back and look. But, if you decide, not to bid it, you collapse it. If you decide to bid it, you do the risk analysis or pursue it. And this is what makes you decide whether you're going to chase it. And then this up here, a lot of you guys are familiar with it, but it's just the various steps in the pre-construction process that must be taken if you're going to have absolute certainty of outcome. And at the margins we work at, you got to have absolute certainty of outcome. I mean, excuse my French, this ain't a crapshoot. I mean, this is a business that when you get out there, you got to have it wired. Some of you guys have been put on some projects this year where that wasn't the case. Some of you are doing an amazing job of dealing with a tough deck of cards. And you're working your tails off, and we appreciate it. We put some of you in some positions, frankly, that, are very difficult, and we wish were different. But it was, at the top end, just not necessarily following the process the right way. Some people say it was because we had a huge revenue goal and it was pressure to chase revenue. That could be it. Different things affect people different ways. But that's why we've kind of backed the BHAG down a little bit and tried to reframe it, and we're going to focus on margin and focus on getting it right. So, one thing that's kind of new is this kickoff meeting, the term kickoff meeting. I mean, that's when we know we got a project for certain. It's been in pre-construction, and we're gonna hit the gas, moving toward construction. It's a stop. At one time that might have been called a cutover meeting, but if you'll see, we've kind of moved it into the process a little sooner than what was typically called cutover. So anyway, this will be something we'll roll out, and we're going to try to roll out the training, organize it in some respects around this. Okay, next is, I think some of you know, we talked about it 6 months ago, that we were going to get away from the incentive plan that you had grown accustomed to. Next slide, please. So this is kind of a soft rollout. We'll talk about what we've done the process that we used to create it, a few maybe components of it, and kind of the next steps. So, you know, we got feedback from you guys. We heard that the old one was too complicated. It was too complicated for some of us. It was certainly difficult from an accounting standpoint to book what we thought we were going to pay out in the various job bonus programs against the separate company plan, and invariably it got difficult on our side as well. We wanted to increase the level of engagement. We wanted to motivate and energize people. We wanted it to reinforce and communicate our strategy and initiatives, and we hope it'll help to attract and retain all of our folks, you know, new people, and retain our existing people. You know, we wanted to provide an adequate financial reward in return for a reasonable cost. So, kind of what did we do to get there? You know, we engaged FMI. Some of you met Ben Brahinsky earlier, a company that he once worked for. This was against Ben's advice. Ben felt like we should create it ourselves. But the more we talked about it, we felt like somebody that was doing nothing but this from the outside, who knows what else is going on in the industry, you know, might be a more objective way to approach it. So we asked FMI to interview some folks. We then convened a design team that included some Lemoine VPs, and it included some of the operations managers. Based on those findings, we created a new structure, basically FMI created. We received their recommendations and made a few changes to that work, which have been documented and will be rolled out in a complete plan relatively soon. But the way the thing works is the three major pieces to it. You know, does the company hit its goals? Did the business unit or market that you're working in hit its goals? And then each individual will have 3 goals for the year. Many of them will be developmental, but they all will be measurable. They all going to have some stretch to them. And you'll be talking about them with your direct report quarterly. Anything? What did I miss there? You memory that? So what you're going to see happening over the next few weeks is the entire detailed plan will be rolled out in Lafayette, Baton Rouge, New Orleans, or by department. But we'll send out a schedule by group, and we'll roll the complete plan out in smaller groups and give you detailed explanation of how the numbers work. Then every person will get a letter stating what your potential is in the plan this year based on the projections you saw and what your 3 goals are that you'll be working against. So, let's see, well, man, we're right on schedule. What's amazing? You know, as Don said, and I think as I alluded to, 2013 was a little more challenging year than we had hoped. We had significant opportunity. We just didn't do a good job of taking advantage of it. But you know, when you think about the where we want to go as an organization, when you think about the strategic plan, when you think about the market, you know, when you think about the culture of excellence, I mean, I think we're well positioned. I don't like when you know, I'm not a great person to be around when things don't go according to plan, but it's I've learned some lessons in this, and I've learned that I got to change. And so, you know, I'm optimistic about the future. I think the opportunities in our business in this state are unprecedented. I mean, they certainly are in my lifetime. I've never seen anything like the amount of work that is in design right now or that is in development. So, you know, I think it's time to get serious about innovation. You know, we got to change. We all have to change as individuals. We got to improve in all aspects of what we do. And there's some great tools out there. There's some great technology out there. But there's only one way you can do it. You got to create the space in your day to be able to get innovative. If we don't get out in front of these projects, we will never create the space to be innovative. And so, you know, we've got to build in. When we're in pre-construction, and when we're in construction, we got to say, we got to get more aggressive in compressing our task work. And if we can get more aggressive about compressing task work, maybe through the use of technology tools, whatever it is, then we're going to have the space to be innovative in the work that we're doing and in the planning and in what we might change. And then the real challenge there is to begin spreading it across the organization. So, you know, I'm proud when I stand up here to look at you guys and to be able to lead an organization with this much talent. You know, I hope that, you know, we can take advantage of all our opportunities and that, you know, we can get all of you to where you need to be in terms of your careers and in terms of your own goals. So thanks for coming. Somebody said it earlier today, Mardi Gras is a fun time, but we want it to be a safe time. So I know everybody will be drinking. Let's just make sure we don't drink and drive. Thank you.